going to wait a minute before I can confirm transmission before I start speaking. We're going to give this just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure if the signal is working. I don't know if we have a connection here. Are you guys picking me up? Alright, I don't know. They must have shut the notifications off. Do we have an audience yet? Let me take a look here. Alright, can you guys hear me okay? Not sure about the signal, but we'll find out here. Okay. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joe Imbriano. Today is Thursday, August 30th, 2018, and we're coming to you from Orange County, California. And I want to talk to you about a situation that we face as a lifelong resident of California and as a citizen activist for decades in Southern California. I've had my finger on the pulse of a lot of agendas. And one of the agendas that has been really concerning to me is this push to spray us with chemicals. And, you know, these unelected boards, like the Vector Control Board in Orange County, keeps trying to vote themselves into a situation where they can hand the power over to the manager of the Vector Control District to spray us. Now, when they spray us, they're not going to spray us with a garden hose, folks. They're going to spray us with petrochemical poisons, with nerve agents and inert petrochemical derivatives, ostensibly to kill mosquitoes. Now, I understand mosquitoes are a serious problem. They transmit illness. They transmit deadly illness. But here's the situation, folks. It's like going around a glass house with a hammer in search of a solution. When they spray this chemical spray, the chances of it landing on a mosquito are about 1 in 100 million. The way to solve the mosquito problem in Southern California is not to spray from the air, ladies and gentlemen. And it is not to spray from the ground, ladies and gentlemen. It is to stop releasing the mosquitoes that have been raised in laboratories from all the ways they're released in aircraft and on the ground-based delivery systems. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I believe what we see in California is the beginning of a staged epidemic that is being brought about by the intentional release of a variety of mosquitoes that is an invasive species that is capable of carrying a myriad of potentially debilitating neuroinvasive encephalitic diseases. It literally is the perfect vector, if you will, to further an agenda of forced vaccination and forced aerial spraying, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I've lived in Southern California my whole life, and I have never, ever seen a mosquito season like this. And this is on the heels of a year after another year after another year after another year of no rain. California is returning to a desert. The Southern California climate has become completely desiccated by the chemtrails and the geoengineering and the chemical spraying activities that I'm looking at right now. Once again, subtropical moisture headed our way from the southeast and is being blocked once again by radio frequency interference, interaction with metallic nano compounds being sprayed in the atmosphere to stop the rain. So we've got an invasive species of mosquitoes that hasn't just arrived, ladies and gentlemen. They've taken over! And there's no water to speak of anywhere in Southern California. For crying out loud, the storm drains are empty. You can't even wash your car in your driveway anymore. There is no water in the storm drains. There's no water in the ditches. There's no standing water. People's grasses are all dead. The trees are dying in a lot of people's yards because they don't water them. The point is, our climate has changed, and yet we've been overrun with a species of mosquito called Aedes aegypti that is native to the tropics. We are not living in the tropics in Southern California, ladies and gentlemen. We are living in a desert climate, an arid climate, and the mosquito population that has blossomed here did not do it by a natural birthing process. I believe this mosquito population was brought in canisters and released by aircraft. And the proliferation patterns of this invasive Aedes aegypti mosquito appears to run along the 5 freeway. I don't know if they ran, you know, these helicopters popping these canisters out of them, but you know how they release mosquitoes? They put a couple 100,000 into them, into a little canister the size of a Pillsbury cinnamon roll container, and they just pop and they fly out. They can do it at very high altitudes, and the mosquitoes end up coming down, taking up residence, and there you have it. I've never, ever, ever seen the amount of mosquito activity and the bite patterns that I'm seeing now on me and my family. Now, I'm not concerned about mosquito bites, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't live in fear. My children are healthy. My children were breastfed. My children don't use Wi-Fi. My children don't use fluoride water. We filter our water. My children eat organic food. My children have not been vaccinated, so they have a very good immune system. Now, however, there are a lot of people that eat a bunch of microwave Hot Pockets, get a shot every time they go to Kaiser, and they eat their Frankenfruit, their Count Chocula, their Count Dracula, or whatever, and they've got about 50 pounds of sugar in their bloodstream on any given moment, and they're using the fluoride toothpaste, and they're staying up all night under the blue glow light of the idiot box smart TV that's turning them into an idiot, and their immune systems are out the door because they're on medication. So of course, if they get bit by a mosquito that just bit a sick rat or a sick chicken, and it happens to be one of those zoonotic viruses or pathogens that's been invented, they're going to catch the disease. The mosquito outbreak in Southern California is staged, ladies and gentlemen. The mosquitoes that we see in Southern California are native to the tropics. What do you find in the tropics? Rain, swamps, water. These mosquitoes cannot live in a dry, arid climate unless they're continuously reintroduced. Now, I will give them this. They have quite an inventive life cycle regeneration. Their eggs can last for a long time on the surfaces of dry pots and buckets and such forth. But folks, it ain't raining. It hasn't rained for years. How are these mosquitoes taking over and outstripping the resident population of the normal mosquitoes that live here? And you know what I don't see anymore, ladies and gentlemen? And this is very telling. The very large mosquitoes, it really used to be, I used to call them like the daddy long leg spider version of the mosquitoes. You don't see those anymore. They're gone. They're absent. So, and the other types of mosquitoes that used to live here, you used to hear them buzzing around your ear at night. You could tell if one of them got in the house because you'd hear it. It always goes for your ear for some reason. These bite at your legs and your ankles. And that is why people are getting these bites around their ankles, and people are mistaking this for fleas or other types of insects, and they're demanding that their homes and offices get sprayed with poisonous chemicals. It's unbelievable what's going on. We are being set up in Southern California for an epidemic of some form of disease, whether it's Zika or dengue fever or St. Louis encephalitis or any of these other horrific diseases that these Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are capable of carrying. And let me tell you why I'm so concerned, folks. We have fought back for years I myself included, have spoken on numerous occasions and laid out scientific facts about the fraud involved in the pretext that has been used to forcibly spray populations. For example, Zika. We hear about this microcephaly threat to children, unborn children, if they're bit by a mosquito carrying Zika. Did you know that the so-called Zika virus was patented by the Rockefellers in the 40s, ladies and gentlemen? Did you know it's a man-made pathogen? And the Rockefellers hold the patent to that. The Rockefeller Foundation holds the patent to a disease that supposedly causes microcephaly. Now, although Zika's never been established to be medically linked to microcephaly, nonetheless, that's the mantra. So now they've got the mosquitoes in Southern California that can carry Zika, and the Vector Control Board organization, which is a multi-jurisdictional entity that covers various cities in Orange County, that basically has, to some extent, police powers to forcibly spray and quarantine areas. They're telling us that the vector is present, the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are here, and that they are capable of transmitting diseases. And although none have been found to carry these diseases right now, the threat does exist that the potential could arise that we could face an outbreak. Now, several years ago, during the height of this battle over whether to spray Orange County or not, over a handful of cases of West Nile, and there were some fatalities, but ladies and gentlemen, you don't die from West Nile unless you're immunocompromised. And if you're immunocompromised, you have two choices: stay indoors at night, or stop taking all the drugs that are making you immunocompromised. And the third choice, of course, is if you can't help it. That's unfortunate. Some people have this situation where they can't help it, and you've got to take precautions. But now, they've made it impossible for immunocompromised people to remain safe, because now we have day-biting mosquitoes, which I believe have been produced in mass and distributed intentionally throughout specific areas along the I-5 corridor in Southern California, as a pretext to set the stage for a campaign to aerial spray and to forced vaccinate, because I believe they're about to stage an epidemic of some form of neuroinvasive encephalitic disease or worse. How do I know this? Well, first of all, my common sense and intuition tells me that what happened to all the regular mosquitoes is a mystery, because these mosquitoes don't eat each other. They've been wiped out. They must have sprayed something to get rid of them. Now, we have this invasive variety of what's called Aedes aegypti mosquitoes that are native to the tropics, and they need lots of water and lush, humid, muggy climate and plenty of hosts to survive on. Now, we've got plenty of people walking around with shorts right now, but unfortunately the breeding grounds simply don't exist to the extent that would be necessary in Southern California to have this kind of proliferation of this non-native invasive species of mosquitoes. So the only other explanation for their prevalence and their vast numbers and their distribution and concentration along the area that it has been purported to be in existence is that they've been brought here and released in mass. There is no way that this number of these mosquitoes has bred this quickly in the middle of an arid desert. But yet they expect us to believe that it has happened that way. Years ago, about 3 years ago, when we were fighting the spraying of the chemicals, this cocktail, if you will, of chemicals, sterilizing, cancer-causing, deadly, poisonous pesticides, and they were going to do it all over Southern California. We stopped them. There was enough community outcry and media coverage, even though the media was leaning towards getting behind the spraying. Of course, they get behind everything that's bad because they're controlled. But they decided, the pressure was placed on the board members to vote not to do this and not to hand the authority over to one unelected bureaucrat to spray us at his discretion. But what they tried to do after we stopped them was really frightening, folks. I put out an article on the FullertonInformer.com. You see, the Vector Control Board in Orange County has traps all over Orange County. And what they do is they test what gets trapped in these traps for the prevalence of disease, whether they're positive for West Nile or, you know, other pathogenic organisms. And so they kind of keep their finger on the pulse of what's brewing and breeding, so to speak. Well, I'll tell you that after we stopped them from spraying us without any real justification, they were collecting their traps, and in one of the traps, they had found mosquitoes that tested positive for a disease called St. Louis encephalitis. That's another neuroinvasive encephalitic form that has the potential to paralyze people if it goes all the way and runs its course in an immunocompromised person. Well, guess where they happened to find the mosquitoes that tested positive for St. Louis encephalitis, ladies and gentlemen? They found it on Vector Control's own property in Garden Grove. Now, out of the 10,000 mosquito traps that they set in Orange County, the only one that found mosquitoes that tested positive for St. Louis encephalitis were on Vector Control's own property. Now, why is this significant, ladies and gentlemen? Well, because if at first you don't succeed, you try and try again. And so what they did is they were unsuccessful for several times in attempting to spray us and dump chemicals on us that are nerve agents and sterilants, which is all part of a pretext to kill us off. It's eugenics, ladies and gentlemen. They failed with the normal West Nile scare, so what they had to do is up the ante, double down, raise the stakes, if you will. And they decided, hey, maybe we can get away with this if we bring in a more virulent strain of some sort of encephalitic disease that'll really freak these people out in accepting the spraying. So, that's what they did. But it didn't work because I exposed it. And it didn't get off the ground, ladies and gentlemen, because when you get out in front of a scam, of a conspiracy, of a plot, of a carefully laid out plan, carefully crafted plan to screw everybody, they get away with it. Only if we're not looking, and we were looking, and we were on them, so they scrapped that one. But guess what now, folks? They've moved over to the high limit room. They've really doubled down, and they've raised the stakes big time. They've actually brought in a species of mosquitoes that can't survive here unless they have a tremendous amount of help, called 747s, with cases and cases and cases of billions of these things that have been brought somewhere here to some agency or entity that is releasing these mosquitoes into our environment. Look up the Aedes aegypti mosquito habitat and life cycle and distribution, and you will see it runs the equator, and you will see it's been absent in so many parts of the world, and it still is, and it just so happens to be a little hot pocket over here now. Now, this is all part of Agenda 21, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you why. Because there are many ways to skin this cat, and none the least of which is aerial spraying of mass populations. That is a very effective way to poison and kill people off and give them cancer. There are many ways to hurt people. One way is to forcibly vaccinate them. So with this mosquito introduction, and with a sleight of hand introducing weaponized mosquitoes that are positive carriers of diseases that have been placed in these mosquitoes, they will be able to manage to create an outbreak, hype it up to no end in the media, scare the living crap out of everybody that's around this area, and they will line up in droves to get their shots, and they will accept the spraying by the crop dusters with petrochemical poisons. That is the plan, folks. That is the plan. The plan is to have lots of plans. And they've got all kinds of ways to screw you and kill your kids. Now, guess what we can do? We have solutions. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the sky's falling, because it's not. Because the fact of the matter is, the best defense is a good offense. Now, we've got to get out in front of this and expose the fact that these mosquitoes don't belong here, and we want to know who gave them the one-way ticket in with all their friends, and where they're all hanging out and having sex with each other and breeding. Yes, you heard me, these mosquitoes are being bred here. The mosquitoes are being bred here. They've been imported, now they're being bred, and now they're being released and distributed to bite you and piss you off and get you mad and get you scratching yourself, and eventually to make some people very sick and possibly kill them. What do? We expose the simple facts that these mosquitoes don't belong here, that this mosquito epidemic that we see right now is staged, and we don't yield ourselves to their edicts of allowing us to be sprayed. No. Anybody with a brain knows that mosquitoes need water to breathe, and everybody knows that most of the diseases that we see on the stage today have been created in a laboratory. Now, back to Zika. Back to this virus that they had everybody scared about. If you went through TSA at the airport, there were signs, you know, warning you about Zika and being pregnant. Look, folks, Zika infection has never been medically established to be linked to microcephaly. Microcephaly is a condition where it's a congenital deformity of a child in the womb, whereas the child's brain doesn't develop. It's born with a shrunken head, basically. And one of the biggest contributing causes of microcephaly, and I want you to listen to this, this is extremely important. Microcephaly is caused by maternal phenylketonuria. And that is a medical term used to describe a metabolic disorder in a pregnant mother whereby they cannot metabolize phenylalanine. Now, why do we have a situation in Brazil where we had an epidemic of microcephaly? I want you to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. This is extremely important. What I'm about to tell you right now, you will never hear anywhere else. But the Zika epidemic in Brazil at the time was caused not by the Zika virus, although the Zika pathogen, and I'm not even sure it's a virus, I have my doubts to the fact that even viruses even exist the way we're being told they do. I believe what they call viruses are simply endemic proteins our bodies make, but I'll get into that on another show. The microcephaly that was found in these women, and by the way, all these women had been vaccinated because the regimen of prenatal care in Brazil calls for immunizations during pregnancy. I believe that a combination of two things were taking place in Brazil that was creating this epidemic of microcephaly. And that is, the government was watering the strawberry fields with water that was full of aspartame, ladies and gentlemen, to make the strawberries sweeter, to sell them. The fruit in Brazil was being watered with water that was laced with artificial sweeteners. Aspartame releases phenylalanine in high levels in your body. The Zika virus, or the Zika pathogen, was simply introduced into the mosquito population at the time to line up with the coincidence of a vaccination program combined with the dosing of the fruit crops with aspartame-laden sweeteners. When you dose people with high levels of NutraSweet, thank you, Mr. Rumsfeld, as you headed up the cereal company that patented this deadly poison and released it into the soft drink industry. Well, in Brazil during the Olympics, they were watering the fruit crops with high levels of water-containing aspartame or aspartame, whatever you call it. And if you look at anything that contains aspartame as a sweetener, you will notice that it has a label on it, warning phenylketonuretix. It contains phenylalanine. Phenylalanine to a pregnant woman in high concentrations, if they happen to have been given the specific vaccinations that enhance the proclivity of the human body to succumb to maternal phenylketonuria onset, caused the microcephaly in Brazil. And they released weaponized mosquitoes containing Zika at the same time so they would have positive antibody tests in these people. Zika has never been medically established to be linked to microcephaly, ladies and gentlemen. And they're going to do the same thing here because they don't need to water the strawberries with aspartame in the United States, ladies and gentlemen. They've already got Coca-Cola and Pepsi doing that for you. You already put that stuff in your coffee. It's in your iced teas. It's in all your soft drinks. It's in the yogurts. It's in the cereal. It's in your Fiber One, for crying out loud. So they've got the stage set for a maternal phenylketonuria outbreak in our pregnant women. All they have to do is spike the mosquitoes with Zika. And bingo! Bingo! We have an epidemic, ladies and gentlemen, and now it's time for more vaccinations and spraying. Right now, if you're pregnant and you go to the doctors, they're going to recommend that you get a flu shot and a whooping cough shot. That's what they do. Any of you who've ever worked with resins or styrofoam or any of those plastics manufacturing realize that it's a two-part mixture. You have a resin and you have the catalyst, so to speak. Well, guess what, folks? It's a two-part binary weapon system. You've got the aspartame that is literally filling up our bloodstreams if you're stupid enough to drink that stuff, and the vaccine that's pumped into the pregnant woman. I'm warning you right now, we are on the verge of a staged epidemic in Orange County. They have set the stage. Orange County, California was the home to the staged measles outbreak. The strain of measles that was found to be placed and staged at Disneyland was a strain of measles that the measles vaccine has never been tested for efficacy against. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Let me tell you something, folks. Orange County is ground zero for the Agenda 21 forced vaccination agenda. And Disneyland is owned by the Walt Disney Corporation, which now owns Fox News and ABC and Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres and all the other stuff. And look, they got 3 6s in their logo. There's a serpent in the S in the middle, and they push all the wrong stuff, folks. They push all the wrong stuff. And I want to tell you something. They had their hands in this whole thing. You know, they managed never to find patient zero, all this nebulous tracing back to nobody, but yet we got a staged epidemic that was launched there from a strain that the vaccines have never been tested against to be effective against, and yet they mandate the vaccine for it. Ha! Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So now here we go again. A couple years later, we got a problem on our hands. You know why? Because after that staged measles outbreak took place at the Tragic Kingdom over at Disneyland, they managed to ram through the legislature by the works of a Senator Ben Allen and a Senator Richard Pan, you know, Pan, that demonic god, that's what he's named after, a forced vaccination law called SB 277. Now, this law was passed by the legislature, including the scumbag representative from Fullerton, Young Kim, who wants to run for Congress now. That scumbag voted for that law and would not allow any discussion with her constituents on it before it was passed. That law was signed by Governor Jerry Brown, Mr. Agenda 21, Jesuit operative, Vatican assassin warlock, eugenicist Jerry Brown. That's right, he signed that law. That law mandated vaccinations for school entry at 2 points, kindergarten and 7th grade. Now, we know that vaccine law was aimed at children. But what that vaccine law did not do, amazingly enough, if you were really worried about children's health and if vaccines were really truly safe and effective, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. If it's all about protecting the kids, why aren't the teachers mandated to get the shots? Why aren't the cafeteria workers mandated to get the shots? Why aren't the janitors mandated to get the shots? Why aren't the child care workers mandated to get the shots? Why aren't the principal and administrative staff mandated to get the shots? Anyone who has contact with children should have been mandated to get the vaccines. No, they aimed it at the kids. And they started at the 7th grade entry point and the kindergarten entry point. Now, ostensibly as a result of a measles outbreak, they mandated a whooping cough shot and a tetanus shot and a diphtheria and pertussis, DTP, DTaP, DPAP, whichever one it is. They've mandated a vaccine for 7th grade entry for children. What happens in 7th grade? Well, if you're a normal guy and you're growing up in the 70s, you were yanking the girls' bra straps and lifting up their skirts, because that's what boys did in 7th grade. It's puberty, folks. That's when these sexual reproductive organs start to develop. And what do they have ready for the 7th graders, ladies and gentlemen? A vaccine! Yes. Oh, and by the way, my blood pressure's fine. You guys tell me that I'm stressed out. No, I'm yelling because this is very serious information, okay? And I'm excited to bring it to you. And I'm happy to be the one to have the privilege to tell the truth. So this 7th grade entry vaccine, this DTaP shot, this whooping cough shot, happens to be in with the tetanus shot. Now, tetanus is the ideal carrier for the beta subunit of HCG, which is a pregnancy hormone. This is a vaccine that has the capability to sterilize children, ladies and gentlemen. And as a matter of fact, the tetanus shots were found to be spiked with beta HCG in Kenya, and they were sterilizing young girls, 6th, 7th grade girls. Look, folks. Oh, and by the way, I swam 30 laps this morning in my pool, so I got plenty of cardio. So I'm ready for you, okay? It's all good, ladies and gentlemen. I walk a couple miles at lunch. I swim a whole bunch. I'm not going to drop dead on you, folks. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to crank this out and expose all these satanic technocratic scumbags that have needles and airplane nozzles full of poison aimed at you and your kids. Back to what I was saying. 7th grade entry requirement for vaccination for junior high entry is this. It's a sterilization agenda that was arisen out of a staged measles outbreak. What do you think they've got planned with this staged mosquito proliferation, with the importation of an invasive, non-native species of mosquitoes that only live in the tropics called Aedes aegypti, that need jacuzzis of disgusting filth to live in, and there aren't any here. There's no water in the gutters. There's no water in the storm drains. There's no water in the canals. There's no water in people's grass because they're not watering their grass, folks. These mosquitoes were brought here after they were bred, and let me tell you something. They are the most extremely effective vectors at carrying the most horrific diseases known to man. And they've brought them all in. You know what that's like? That's like breeding rats by the millions and bringing them in on semi-trucks and releasing them in the middle of the night all up and down the 5 freeway in Southern California. And as we're overrun with rats, Vector Control comes out and says, you know what? We got a problem. These rats, they're not native to here. And they're all over the place now, and be on the lookout because they could be carrying bubonic plague, because that was the vector that carried the fleas that released the bubonic plague and spread the bubonic plague in the Dark Ages. Well, it's the same thing, folks. They brought truckloads of these mosquitoes in, and they're releasing them out of airplanes. I firmly believe that's what's going on. I am telling you that we are on the eve of something very large. Now, I want to talk to you about something, folks. I want to talk to you about how to protect yourself, because there's always an important component to everything I say and everything I tell you. There is always a solution. I want to talk to you about what you can do to protect yourself from these mosquitoes. Mosquitoes hone in on their target and look for blood based on an infrared sensing system. Oh yeah, that's some sort of evolutionary accident, right? Yeah, I know. God made mosquitoes. They have a purpose in the food chain, ladies and gentlemen. Their larvae provide a tremendous amount of food for aquatic animals, fish, frogs, lizards, everything. Here's the thing. Mosquitoes are not supposed to be carrying weaponized, manufactured, pathogenic organisms. Yeah, they carry stuff in the tropics, but did it ever occur to you that maybe those were staged outbreaks as well? Look, mosquitoes hone in on infrared imaging. Do you know how you can protect yourself? Well, you can wear clothing over your lower extremities, because what they're after, these are ankle-biting mosquitoes. They bite around your ankles and your shin. How do I know? I'm a soccer coach, and my practice is from 7 to 8:30, and I happen to practice every Monday and Wednesday night in a field that's about 8 inches deep in grass, because the city's too cheap to cut it, because they're too busy paying off all the police murder lawsuits and the framing and sexual violation lawsuits, so they don't have the money to pay the groundskeepers. So I'm getting bit by these mosquitoes, and on the weekends when I'm home, I'm out working, you know, sun up to sundown, and even after that, I'm getting bit by these mosquitoes. You know what? You know how you solve this problem? You cover yourself up, and you can do that with two things: clothing, or guess what else, folks? Aloe vera. Do you know what aloe vera does? Aloe vera off the plant is a slimy gel. You tear open the specific Aloe barbatus, I believe is the name of the plant. Buy them at Home Depot, plant them everywhere. The most easy to grow plant. All they need is neglect, and they grow. Rub the aloe vera on your skin, on your lower extremities. You know what that does? It does a couple of things. It produces an emulsification of mucopolysaccharides on your skin that nourishes your skin and smooths your skin. And you want to know something, ladies and gentlemen? It's really good for your skin, especially after a nice day in the sun. It does wonders for your skin. Rub this aloe vera gel on your skin, on your legs, on your ankles, all the way up to your knees. Every day if you're going to be outside. Now here's why it's important that you understand what I'm saying. When you put that stuff on, you know what it does? It puts a barrier on your skin. And it doesn't prevent a mosquito from biting you and penetrating you, but what it does do is it puts a layer of insulation between your skin and the mosquito's perception of the infrared spectrum. In other words, you don't appear as hot on his radar, so they won't bite you. They won't bite you. Now, another thing you can do is you can keep a clove of garlic in your sock. I don't know if you want to do that because you're going to smell like garlic. You can eat garlic. But the best protection against these mosquitoes is simply covering up. And if you're going to have exposed areas outside, when you're outside where they're releasing these things, then what you need to do is cover the exposed areas. I put aloe vera on my face all the time after I'm in the sun. I put aloe vera all over my face. I put it on my hair. I put it on my ears. Did you know I cover my hair in aloe vera a couple times a week? Did you know that? Do you know how good aloe vera is for your skin, for your hair follicles, for your body? Do you know I even eat it? Aloe vera is a miracle plant. And you know what? They've put it on the Prop 65 list, and they want to control it. They say it's a Class 2B carcinogen. Well, of course they're going to tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't want you to have it. Did you know that you could grow aloe vera in a pot, in a bucket, in a can, and put it on your windowsill, and it'll be there, and it doesn't need anything but a little sunlight and a little neglect? Okay. And I'm not talking about the garbage they sell in the bottle. That's garbage. Don't buy that crap at the store. It's garbage. Buy the plant. Lots of plants. Stick them in the ground. Stick them in your lawn. Stick them everywhere. Everybody should have 20 aloe vera plants on their property, or 5 aloe vera plants on their balcony if you live in an apartment, and 10 if you have a condo and a patio. Here's the message, folks. Expose the fraud. We got to preemptively get out in front of the fact that they're about to stage an outbreak, stage an epidemic, and plant aloe vera plants and utilize this gel on your bodies. Now, the second thing you can do to protect against those mosquitoes, if they do weaponize them and put these diseases in them, which I believe they're about to do, is you must be healthy. You must get enough sleep. You must have at least an hour a day of sunlight through your eyes. And you must get off of all refined sugar right now. The only thing more immunosuppressive than white sugar are immunosuppressive steroid treatments. You must get off of all white sugar immediately. Because guess what? The germs ain't gonna have a feast inside of you if they got no sugar to eat. Listen, get off the sugar. Get that aloe vera on your skin, around your ankles. Try it. And you know what else is really good? If you do get bit, tea tree oil is a wonderful antiseptic that you put on the bites that stops the itches. Okay? Folks, I'm coming to you in the name of Jesus Christ with truth. With truth, ladies and gentlemen. With the truth of Almighty God and His sinless Son, the eternal King, Jesus Christ Himself. And I want you to know that you can trust what I'm telling you. And I'm telling you that there are solutions. And then I'm also warning you that Southern California is about to be hit with an epidemic that is going to be staged. And the more we can get out this information that it's coming, the more likely we can head it off. Because if we can get out in front of these, this is going to be another false flag, folks. This is a setup. They're setting up a staged epidemic in Southern California. Vector control is involved with high levels of the government in this. When you look up the chain of who's making these pesticides and how they import these people to be the managers and the people that run these entities, they're all connected. And these people are promoted to their highest level of incompetence. I see this over and over again when I go to these meetings, and I film these people and I look them in the eye and I ask them questions. They are conned and they are con men, and we are neither. We are children of the Most High God who have been created in the image of God and are loved by Him, so much so that God sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die for our sins, ladies and gentlemen, to free you from the enslavement of these satanic technocrats and their weaponry, folks. This channel is sponsored by Jesus Christ Himself, and that's the honest truth. That's it for now, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and I hope you enjoyed the truth and the solutions that I have provided you, because the wisdom from above makes the wisdom of this world nothing but folly. Ladies and gentlemen, the Word of God is a double-edged sword, and the spiritual battle we face is where we wield this sword. And this sword is the most powerful force in the world, ladies and gentlemen. God bless all of you. Maybe tonight we'll hit you back. Maybe on the way home, God willing. In Jesus' name we go, amen.